Hey guys, so this is Chicago Fire. I'm doing the 2 hour, um, the 2 hour movie event, and then which is the 2 hour movie event is episodes 14 to 15, and then episodes 16 and 17. Hopefully, I can get all of this in one shot. So basically, the first the in the 2 hour movie event, the first part of it was about how I'm gonna try to cover it kind of generally since it's been a couple weeks. So basically, what happened in this episode was the CFD had gotten a call about, or Firehouse 51 got a call at a shopping center or store. In the store parking lot, a woman named Holly Boylan had drove her car up on to where the shopping carts usually end up um, when people are finished with them after they get out of the store. And so she drove it up on there, and then when they're trying to get both her and her husband Scott out of the car, Casey sees marks on her neck, and um, pretty much throughout the entire episode, Casey is trying to get he's trying to get her out of the domestic abuse situation that she's in, or domestic abuse relationship that she's in. And the reason why he got so into helping her is because his mom was in an abusive relationship with his father, and it took her killing him to put an end to it. And basically, basically what happens is she ends up she ends up Holly ends up almost doing the exact same thing his mother does, and almost kills her husband, to try to get away from his abusive tendencies. And that's pretty much at the end of the first part of the 2 hour movie event. And then he ends up getting her into a no contact shelter. And during the first part of this movie event, Brett thinks that she might be pregnant. Well, Gabby turns her on to the idea, but she also starts to think that she's pregnant because she's feeling tired, and nauseous and vomiting, and so she thinks she might be pregnant. And so at the end of that first part of the 2 hour event, she is about to take a pregnancy test, and then transitioning into the second part of the episode, she's taking the pregnancy test and finds out that she's not pregnant, and she's disappointed because she started to believe she was pregnant. And so anyway, so at the beginning of the second, what's technically the second episode, the Truck 81, Squad 3, and Ambulance 61 get called to a house fire, and one a kid, the son in the whole household, he comes running out saying that it sounded like pipes bursting and all that. And so everyone goes in to help get anyone else out, and while everyone is trying to get everyone else out, Otis and Stella end up getting hit by they're getting shot at. They don't know where it's coming from, but they're getting shot at and all that. And Stella and Otis are Otis ends up getting hit in the neck, and Stella ends up getting hit. Her walkie-talkie ends up getting hit, and it turns out the son had bought guns and ammo, and when the fire started, there was a gun that was, loaded with ammo in it, and it ended up getting heated up. What happens is the gun gets very, very hot from the fire, and because of that, the ammo gets heated up as well, and then ends up discharging, even though no one's pulling the trigger. I don't know how to explain it really much, very well, the science behind it, but that's what I know, and basically they all end up getting out, and they all go to med. Stella's fine. She has some bruises, and I think they might have said that she had like a broken rib or two, or bruised rib or two, or something. But they don't know about Otis yet, so basically the entire episode is centering around Otis, and getting the prognosis on him, and all that, and everyone's really upset about the fact that the kid had a gun, and he didn't say anything till the last second, and turns out that there wasn't any damage to any vertebrae or the spinal cord, but Otis is gonna have to go into surgery and all that, and then um, and then he eventually does wake up, but then he can't feel anything in his legs, at least not much. Um, and then, sorry, I'm just trying to look through my notes real quick just to bring out the major points. And at the end of the episode, at the end of the 2-hour movie event, Severide ends up going to Molly's, because pretty much during the second episode, he was acting distant towards Stella, and then she calls him out on it when he ends up going to meet with her at Molly's while she does inventory, and he ends up kissing her, and they end up sleeping together, and then that's pretty much a 2-hour movie event. Now on to episode 16, which is called One That Matters Most. What we find out is that the reason why Otis had a loss of sensation in his legs was because he ended up, because he has a blood clotting disorder or something like that. And what happened was a pool of blood had collected somewhere along his spine, and it started to press on his spinal column and his nerves in his spine. And so they had to do a second surgery to relieve the blood from off his spine. So they get a floater named Jay Cardova to fill in for Otis. And then they get a call. Truck 81 and Angle 61 gets a call out to a diner or a restaurant where a man is stuck in a giant mixer, or his arm is. And so eventually they get the man's arm out of the mixer, and go back to the station. Chief Grissom comes in and speaks with Bowden about how he's going to end up retiring, and he put Bowden's name into fill a spot, but Bowden says, well, I always imagined my entire career being at 51, and so Grissom tells him that because he has a family now, his current position would, Grissom's current position would be a good fit for Bowden. So when Grissom, leaves, Sephiroth's like, well, I'm sorry for blowing you off. I didn't mean to. But I wanted to choose my own path and all that. And so he, Grissom gets butthurt over it, and he's like, well, I was just trying to help you out. No, you were trying to push what you wanted onto someone else. So you want to get pissy because someone else wants to choose what they want out of their life rather than what you want out of their life. That he if he wants to be a fucking baby about it, so fucking what. Sarai shouldn't worry about that shit, because like, just because he was his mentor doesn't mean anything. Just because I mean, yeah, I get that he shaped who you are as a firefighter, but that doesn't mean that he should dictate how the rest of your career should go just because he helped your ass out. I mean, yeah, you should be grateful, but you're not obligated to do something just because someone else thinks that what you should do is what they think you should do. I mean, that's just personally my thing, but anyway. So Herman is having a hard time with the fact that Jake is seems to just be taking over Otis's spot on 81, Truck 81, and what eventually ends up happening is he ends up, was it in this episode? I don't remember if it was in episode 16 or 17, but he ends up punching Jake in the face because he doesn't like Jake all that much, and so and Otis ends up, starting to he ends up starting to pull away from everyone because he feels like his condition is just gonna get worse and all that. And so he starts pulling away from everyone and all that, and so she's starting to feel it, and she talks with Herman about how Otis is pulling away, and he reminds her, firefighters don't really like to admit when they need help, and so and Otis is the epitome of that, because it's like in his DNA to not want to ask for help and all that. So just bear with him and all that, and then and that's what she ends up doing at the end of the episode. And so throughout this entire episode, you see the wife and daughter. The wife's name is Jill. The daughter's name is Amanda. They are the family members of the guy that they helped in the beginning of the episode, and throughout the entire episode, they keep coming in the firehouse to make food, but they can't make food to save their lives. Like, their food sucks, and Cruz is having this hard time trying to tell them that their food sucks. And what ends up happening is Bowden ends up, tasting the food and thinking that Jake made the food, tells Jake, yo, your food sucks, and all that, your food fucking sucks, and you should not be allowed in the kitchen again. And he ends up saying why and make it, and while Bowden is saying thinking that Jake made the food, that his food sucks, saying that his food sucks, Jill and Amanda come up behind him and say, well, we made it, and they leave all hurt. So I was just like, oof, girl, like, okay, that was rough, really, really rough. But then that goes into this week's episode, which is called Put Weight on Me, and Otis is doing, his physical therapy, and Bowden comes in and is like, well, we have this desk job that I would like you to fill. And so he does. He comes out and he does it, and during a call that 51 has, they go to this swim meet where, or this swimming pool where um, the scoreboard ends up falling, and the electrical wire that still has electricity running through it has come apart from the scoreboard and is making its way towards the water in the pool. And so Stella and Jack go rescue a kid who's still in the pool, while Serenus and Squad 3 get the two people on the floor who got electrocuted um, to safety. And so throughout the entire episode, the kid that Stella and Jack saved, they're trying to figure out who the kid is and where he lives, and he doesn't tell them at first. And when they bring him to the station, Otis ends up, getting information out of him, and we find out that the kid's name is Xander Barlow. His dad is Franklin Barlow, and he lives on Renshaw. And so they end up calling Franklin a dad, and and so they call the dad, and the dad picks him up. And then what ends up happening is, when Otis and Bowden are leaving the firehouse after shift, the mother comes up and it's like, the father doesn't have any custody over Xander because the father's a psychopath, and she ends up threatening to go to the news station if they don't give her a check outright for having given her son to their father, who's unstable and all that, even though the mother got the son back safely. And so so what ends up happening is Otis feels terrible over this whole situation, and then he ends up going to the woman's house to apologize. And when she doesn't want to listen to it and slams the door in his face, he leaves. And then when he's about to get in his car, he notices a decal on the back of her car where it's like 3 people and like a dog, or 3, like however many people are in the household, and then a pet or something. And then over the people's names, there's Franklin, Mommy, and Xander, and then the doggy. And he goes back to the house and confronts her, and finds Franklin in the house with her, saying, "Honey, what's going on?" And so basically, he takes a picture of the two in the house, all with each other, and goes to 51 to tell them what was going on. Basically they're scam artists trying to get money from the state or from the city. And basically that's that whole main storyline. And then so eventually, because during this whole situation, Otis was like, okay, I'm gonna help you out in the bullpen. And then when this whole situation happened, he was like, I don't want to do it anymore because I messed up. And then he decides to ultimately do it at the end of the episode anyway. And then the other big storyline is another storyline is that Severide's mother, Jennifer, ends up coming to town for a couple weeks because her church in the city she lives in is opening a sister church in Chicago, and she's going to help out for a few weeks. And Stella's trying her hardest to win her over, but she's going a little overboard until she manages to connect with Jennifer over at the church. And what ends up happening towards the end of the episode is that Jennifer is going to confront Benny Sarai's father about how he didn't break her and all of that, and she's doing so well. And she ends up going to talk with him, and ends up bringing Benny back to Sarai's place and sleeping with him. And she's like, when Severide and Stella walk in on them, he's like, "Oh, guess what, honey? We're getting back together." So I'm just like, okay, okay, girl. If you wanted to rip your heart out again, that's all on you. You're ripping your own heart out this time, not the other way. Not him doing it to you. So, I mean, just letting you know. Um, Another little storyline here is the last storyline. Really is um, Casey finds out about Jack and Gabby having slept together about 10 years beforehand, and he's upset about the fact that she never told him because she says because she didn't want him Casey to uh, take out his frustration about them having slept together out on Jack before Casey got to know Jack and all that as a firefighter. But Casey's like, well, I'm upset because of the fact that um, I'm upset because you're leaving things out. I wouldn't have cared. I mean, I wouldn't have cared if you slept with him before you even knew me, because you didn't know me back then. So why should I be upset that you slept with someone before you ever knew me? I'm not upset about that. Uh, it's the fact that you keep leaving things out that I don't like. And so he pretty much says all that to her later, like back at the end of the episode, um, and he brings up the fact that uh, she had done the same thing when Bria was involved and all that. So they it seems like they've made up at the end of the episode. Just remember that actually the other little storyline is Gabby thinks about going to the private sector of being a paramedic, but changes her mind when she sees how her old colleague left her and Brett stranded in the middle of a firefight or a gunfight between two local gangs, and so he she decides to not take up on his offer because the reason why he left him and his partner left the two gang members there is because they don't have insurance, and so their bosses are like, don't take anybody who doesn't have insurance, and so she's like, well, shove it up your ass and leave me the fuck alone, basically at the end of the episode. So that's basically all the storylines, and that's pretty much episodes 14, 15, 16, and 17. Hopefully I covered everything, and if I didn't, please write it in the comments, and I will see, let me watch the trailer for next week, and I'll let you know what I think will happen. Well, it looks like they end up getting into a situation next episode where they a gun's pointed at them. So I mean, there's not really much I can predict. Maybe Dawson and Gabby, or Gabby and Casey end up separating because Gabby keeps leaving things out, or not telling him everything. Maybe that's the only thing I can really predict. Otherwise, I really can't predict much of anything, in my opinion. So I will see you guys later.